Welcome to the deep dive. You ready to get into Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Absolutely. I think we're both going to learn a lot from this one.
Yeah, this book's been a huge hit for like decades, right?
It has. First published back in 97, I believe.
Wow, and it's still so relevant today.
Yeah, it really is. The core principles about financial intelligence and building wealth, they hold up really well.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, can you give us like a quick rundown of the premise?
Sure. So basically, Robert Kiyosaki contrasts the financial advice he got from two different father figures. His own father, the poor dad, and then his friend's father, the rich dad.
And the poor dad was like a highly educated guy, right?
Yeah, he had a PhD and worked for the government.
But he struggled financially,
He did.
while the rich dad was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, he built a successful business empire and had a completely different approach to money and investing.
So the book kind of explores like why some people become rich while others struggle even with good educations and strong work ethics.
Exactly. It's about challenging conventional wisdom and understanding the underlying principles of wealth creation.
And I remember there were a few points in the book that really like blew my mind, like the idea that a house isn't always an asset.
Yeah, that's one of the big ones.
Like it goes against everything we're usually told.
It does. It
Yeah.
really challenges you to think about assets and liabilities in a different way.
And then there's that whole concept of working to learn, not to earn.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. It's about shifting your focus from short-term gains to long-term growth.
Yeah.
It's about building skills and knowledge that will pay off exponentially in the future.
So let's dive into that work to learn, not to earn concept a bit more. Kiyosaki's rich dad really pushed him to gain diverse skills and financial knowledge, even if it meant working for free or taking unconventional paths.
Right. He believed that real-world experience was the best teacher, even if it meant starting at the bottom or working for pennies.
Yeah, like that story about Kiyosaki working for his rich dad for 10 cents an hour.
Oh yeah, classic Kiyosaki story. Most teenagers would never go for that. But he saw it as an investment in his education.
While his friends were like out partying or making minimum wage, he was learning about business, managing cash flow, dealing with customers.
And those are skills you can't learn from a textbook.
So instead of chasing a paycheck, he was building a foundation that would allow him to create his own opportunities.
Exactly. And this leads perfectly into the next big idea, the difference between assets and liabilities.
All right, break it down for us. What exactly are assets and liabilities?
Okay, so in simple terms, an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. So a rental property that generates monthly income, that's an asset. A car loan that you have to make payments on every month, that's a liability.
So the goal is to build up your assets and minimize your liabilities.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki uses this great example to illustrate this point.
Oh.
He talks about how his rich dad and poor dad viewed their homes.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part. It's like a light bulb moment.
His poor dad saw his house as his biggest asset, like a symbol of success.
Right.
But his rich dad viewed it primarily as a liability because of all the ongoing expenses, the mortgage payments, the property taxes, the maintenance.
It's like he was saying, don't be fooled by appearances. Look at the cash flow.
Exactly. And that's why understanding financial statements is so important. You need to be able to analyze the numbers and see where the money is going.
Yeah, that's a huge takeaway. You can't just rely on gut feelings or what you've always been told. You have to dig into the financials.
Absolutely. Now, once you grasp this concept of assets and liabilities, you can start to mind your own business, as Kiyosaki puts it.
What does he mean by that?
It's not necessarily about starting a company. It's about focusing on building your asset column, making your money work for you.
And he tells this amazing story about Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites.
So most people think Ray Kroc was in the hamburger business, right?
That's what I thought, too.
But Kiyosaki points out that Kroc's real business was real estate.
He understood that the true value was in the land under those golden arches.
Wow, so he was building an empire of assets, not just flipping burgers.
Exactly. It's about thinking long-term about creating sustainable wealth.
That's so brilliant. It completely changes how you view business and investing.
And anyone can apply this principle, even if you're working a regular job.
Yeah, it's about making choices that build your asset column, whether it's investing in rental properties or starting a side hustle.
It's about creating multiple streams of income so you're not just relying on a paycheck.
Which brings us to one of the most famous lines from the book, "The rich don't work for money, money works for them."
Right. It's about understanding the different types of income and how to leverage them to build wealth.
Okay, so break down those income types for us.
So you've got earned income, which is what most people focus on, trading your time for money.
Yeah, that's the 9 to 5 grind.
Then you have passive income, which is money that comes in without you actively working for it.
Like rental income or royalties from a book.
Okay. Exactly. And then there's portfolio income, which is generated from investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds.
So the goal is to shift from relying solely on earned income to building streams of passive and portfolio income.
Precisely. And Kiyosaki even shares his own story of how he did this. He started his first corporation while still working at Xerox to shelter his income and acquire assets.
It's like he was playing the long game, setting himself up for financial freedom.
And that's what Rich Dad Poor Dad is all about. It's about understanding the rules of the game so you can play it to win.
Now, there's one more topic I want to touch on before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, and it's a bit controversial, but I think it's important to discuss the history of taxes and the power of corporations.
Yeah, Kiyosaki gets into some interesting stuff there.
So he talks about how the idea of tax the rich is often presented as a solution to income inequality, but he argues that it can actually end up hurting the middle class more.
He traces the history of income taxes back to England and the U.S., showing how they were initially meant to be levied only on the wealthy.
But as governments needed more revenue, they gradually expanded those taxes to include the middle class.
Exactly. And he then explains how corporations are structured to legally minimize their tax burden.
And he's not advocating for tax evasion or anything like that?
No, he's just saying that the wealthy understand how to use the system to their advantage.
It's about financial literacy and knowing how to play the game strategically.
Exactly. It's about leveling the playing field.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about working to learn not to earn the difference between assets and liabilities, the importance of minding your own business, the power of corporations, and the history of taxes.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, but these are foundational concepts that can really change how you think about money and wealth.
So let's take a moment to digest all of this before we dive into the next set of key takeaways in part 2.
Sounds good. I'm ready for more.
Okay, so we've tackled like the basics of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now let's get into the good stuff, like how do we actually build wealth?
Yeah, this is where things start to get exciting. Kiyosaki gives you a glimpse into how the rich actually think, and it's not always what you'd expect.
Totally. And one of the coolest ideas he introduces is this concept of the rich invent money. What does that even mean? Sounds kind of magical.
Right. It's not about literally printing money, but it's about having the financial intelligence to spot opportunities that other people miss and then use those opportunities to create wealth.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki argues that the world is full of potential wealth, but most people aren't trained to see it.
Like that analogy he uses about the gold miner in Peru who said, there's gold everywhere. Most people just aren't trained to see it.
Exactly. It's about developing that golden eye for recognizing value where others see nothing.
So how do we do that? Like, how do we actually invent money?
Well, Kiyosaki shares a bunch of examples from his own life. One of the most compelling is how he bought houses at foreclosure auctions for a fraction of their market value.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part. He bought a house for like $20,000, flipped it for $60,000, made a quick $40,000 profit.
Exactly. And it's not just about flipping houses. It's about finding that something for nothing in any deal.
Something for nothing. That sounds a little too good to be true.
Well, he doesn't mean getting something for free. He means uncovering hidden value that others overlook.
Yeah.
For example, when buying real estate, he might look for properties with extra land that could be developed or zoning changes that could increase the value down the road.
Oh, so it's about thinking ahead, anticipating future possibilities.
Exactly. He's always looking for ways to create value to make something out of nothing. And he also stresses the importance of mastering one financial formula, then moving on to the next.
So it's like a continuous learning process, always expanding your knowledge, adapting to new opportunities.
Exactly. Now, Kiyosaki provides a really helpful list of to-dos in the book, actionable steps anyone can take to start building wealth.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of the most important to-dos?
One that really stands out to me is the importance of finding mentors and advisors who are smarter than you in specific areas.
Surround yourself with experts.
Exactly. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you need people who can guide you, provide advice, and help you avoid costly mistakes.
So it's like building your own personal financial dream team.
Right. Another really powerful to-do is to stop saying, I can't afford it, and start asking, how can I afford it?
That's a total mindset shift.
It is. Instead of focusing on limitations, you start looking for possibilities. It forces you to get creative, to think outside the box.
Love it. What else?
He also talks about overcoming the fear of failure and learning from your mistakes. It's about taking calculated risks and understanding that setbacks are part of the process.
You can't let fear paralyze you.
Exactly. And finally, he emphasizes the importance of constantly seeking new knowledge and developing your financial intelligence. Read books, attend seminars, surround yourself with financially savvy people.
So it's about investing in your education, not just in the stock market.
Precisely. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to money. Now, as we move deeper into the book, Kiyosaki starts to explore more advanced concepts like the different types of income, the power of corporations, and mastering specific financial formulas.
Oh, yeah, I remember those sections. They get pretty detailed.
They do. But even if you're not ready to dive into the nitty-gritty details, there are still some really valuable takeaways.
Like what?
Well, one of the big ones is the importance of converting earned income into passive and portfolio income.
He talks about building a system where your money works for you even while you sleep.
Exactly. It's about creating sustainable wealth that doesn't require you to constantly trade your time for money.
So how do you actually do that?
Well, he breaks down the different types of income-earned passive portfolio and explains the advantages and disadvantages of each.
Right, like how earned income is the most heavily taxed.
Exactly. And then he gets into the power of corporations, explaining how they can provide legal tax advantages and asset protection.
So it's not about avoiding taxes altogether, but about understanding the rules of the game and using them to your advantage.
Precisely. And then he shares specific examples of how he built wealth through real estate and small-cap stocks.
Yeah, those were some pretty eye-opening stories.
They were. He talks about buying properties at foreclosure auctions, trading up for bigger properties, delaying taxes on capital gains.
But he also talks about investing in like high-risk speculative
He
companies.
does. And those strategies are definitely not for everyone. They require a lot of knowledge, risk tolerance, due diligence.
Yeah, it's not about blindly following his exact steps.
No, it's about understanding the principles behind his success and adapting them to your own situation.
So investing in your education, developing your financial intelligence, creating a system where your money works for you.
Exactly. And what makes Rich Dad Poor Dad so powerful is that it challenges your beliefs about money work success. It encourages you to question the status quo and create your own path to financial freedom.
It's a call to action, a reminder that you have the power to shape your financial future.
Absolutely. And before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question that Kiyosaki poses in the book. He asks, what is money if it's not real?
Whoa, that's a deep one. What do you think he means by that?
I think he's challenging us to re-examine our assumptions about money. We tend to think of it as this tangible thing, but what if it's more than that? What if it's a representation of value energy potential?
Interesting. So you're saying our beliefs about money actually shape our financial reality.
Exactly. If we believe that money is scarce, we'll constantly struggle to acquire it. But if we believe that money is abundant and that we're capable of creating it, then we open ourselves up to new possibilities.
So it's all about shifting our mindset.
It's a big part of it. And with that thought-provoking question in mind, let's wrap up this part of our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Join us for the final part, where we'll explore the legacy of this book and what lessons we can take away for our own financial journeys.
All right, we're back for the final part of our Rich Dad, Poor Dad deep dive. And I gotta say, this book has really got me thinking differently about money, you know?
Yeah, it definitely challenges a lot of the conventional wisdom about wealth and success.
One thing that really struck me was how Kiyosaki emphasizes that there's no like one-size-fits-all path to financial freedom.
Right. It's about finding what works best for you. Your own circumstances, your risk tolerance, your goals. It's all got to be taken into account.
Exactly. So you don't have to feel like you're doing it wrong if you're not following some rigid set of rules.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable and figuring out your own unique path.
And he really stresses the importance of taking action, not just reading about it, but actually doing something.
Yeah, he's a big believer in learning by doing. Even starting small. He says every self-made person started small with an idea and then turned it into something big. The same applies to investing. It takes only a few dollars to start and grow it into something big.
I love that. So you don't need like a ton of money to get started.
Not at all. You can start building your asset column with small, consistent investments. Over time, those can really add up.
Okay, so as we wrap up our Rich Dad, Poor Dad deep dive, what are like the biggest takeaways for you?
I think for me, it's got to be the importance of financial literacy. He argues that it's like this crucial skill that's not taught in schools, but it's essential for building wealth and achieving financial freedom.
Yeah, it's like understanding how money works, how to read those financial statements, how to evaluate investments, how to manage your cash flow.
Exactly. It's about becoming financially fluent so you can make informed decisions about your money.
And he also emphasizes building a strong financial foundation by acquiring assets that generate income.
Right. Not just accumulating liabilities that drain your bank account.
Like he really flips the script on that whole a house is an asset thing.
He does. He encourages you to view your home through the lens of cash flow. Is it making you money or costing you money?
That's a game changer. And he gives you all these different strategies for building that asset column, real estate, small cap stocks, even starting your own business.
Yeah. But even beyond the specific strategies, it's his mindset that's really powerful. He wants you to think like an entrepreneur, to see opportunities where others don't, to be willing to take calculated risks.
He's all about self-discipline, persistence, and learning from your mistakes.
Oh, he has a great quote about that. He says, if you want to fly an airplane, I advise taking lessons first. I'm always shocked at people who buy stocks or real estate, but never invest in their greatest asset, their mind.
So true. You got to invest in yourself, invest in your education.
Absolutely. And that education shouldn't stop when you finish school. It's a lifelong journey.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's feeling inspired to take action on their financial journey?
Hmm. I'd say start by asking yourself that question that Kiyosaki poses at the end of the book. What is money, if it's not real? It's a really powerful question that can help you challenge your beliefs about money and wealth.
Yeah, it makes you think about money in a whole new way.
It does. And it reminds you that your thoughts and beliefs can really shape your financial reality.
So challenge those assumptions you've been taught. Explore different perspectives. Be open to new possibilities.
And don't be afraid to take action, even if it's a small step. Start investing in your education. Explore different investment strategies. Start building your asset column.
Remember, the journey to financial freedom, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is. It's about making consistent progress, learning from your mistakes, and never giving up on your goals.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic and a whole new set of sources to explore. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.